Imagine a scenario where Donald Trump, the former U.S. president known for his bold strategies and unconventional ideas, uses financial and political leverage to integrate Canada into the United States. While this might sound like a plot out of a geopolitical thriller, such a scenario opens up fascinating questions about global power dynamics, economic opportunities, and cultural transformations. This hypothetical merger would reshape the geography of North America, consolidate some of the world's richest natural resources under one flag, and create an unparalleled global superpower. But at what cost? Let's dive deep into the consequences of such a move. The immediate consequences for Canada. For Canada, this would represent an unprecedented transformation. As a country known for its strong social programs, universal healthcare, and independent identity, becoming part of the United States would bring sweeping changes. Canadian provinces would likely be restructured to fit into the U.S. federal system, and Canadians would face a cultural shift as American laws, values, and systems replace their own. Provinces like Quebec, with its unique French-speaking population, could resist assimilation, potentially leading to cultural and political tension. Would Quebec push for independence to maintain its cultural identity? Or would it adapt under the new American framework? Economically, the shift could be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, integration into the U.S. economy might bring investment, jobs, and infrastructure development. Provinces like Alberta, rich in oil, could experience a boom as the U.S. prioritizes energy production. However, Canada's stringent environmental regulations could be weakened, leading to debates over the long-term sustainability of such growth. Similarly, universal healthcare, a cornerstone of Canadian identity, might be replaced by privatized systems, leaving many Canadians grappling with the loss of accessible healthcare. Taxes would also change, potentially leading to higher income tax rates for some, while reducing corporate taxes to align with American policies. For ordinary Canadians, the cultural impact could be just as significant as the economic one. They might find themselves navigating a society that prioritizes individualism over collectivism, shifting away from Canada's traditionally more progressive values. While some would welcome the economic opportunities, others could resist the erosion of their national identity, sparking protests and political movements to retain some form of autonomy. How geography would change. Geographically, the merger of Canada and the United States would create the largest landmass under a single nation. This new entity would stretch from the Arctic Circle to the southern borders of Mexico, creating an economic and strategic powerhouse with access to three major oceans: the Pacific, Atlantic, and Arctic. Trade routes through Canada's vast wilderness, including the Northwest Passage, would become critical for global shipping, especially as Arctic ice continues to melt due to climate change. This would grant the United States control over emerging trade corridors, further enhancing its global influence. Major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal would likely emerge as regional economic hubs within this expanded U.S. territory, rivaling New York and Los Angeles in significance. Vancouver, for example, with its strategic Pacific location, would become a vital gateway for trade with Asia, while Toronto's financial sector would integrate with Wall Street, creating one of the most powerful economic networks in the world. At the same time, the integration of Canada's vast natural landscapes, home to pristine forests, freshwater lakes, and abundant wildlife, could face significant challenges. Would the U.S. prioritize conservation, or would these lands be exploited for economic gain? The fate of Canada's national parks and Indigenous lands would likely become a contentious issue, with Indigenous communities resisting changes that threaten their rights and cultural heritage. The geopolitical shifts. From a geopolitical perspective, the unification of the U.S. and Canada would create an unprecedented global superpower. With a combined population of over 400 million and an economy that would dwarf its closest rivals, this new North American nation would hold unparalleled influence in global affairs. It would possess vast energy reserves, critical natural resources, and strategic military advantages, making it a dominant force on the world stage. For countries like China and Russia, this merger would be a significant challenge. The United States, already a major global player, would gain control of Canada's oil reserves, the third largest in the world, and freshwater resources, giving it leverage in energy and environmental negotiations. Additionally, with Canada's Arctic territory now under U.S. control, the new nation would dominate the Arctic Council, influencing policies related to shipping lanes, natural resources, and military presence in the region. Allies of both countries, such as the European Union and the United Kingdom, would need to reassess their relationships with this new North American superpower. Trade agreements like NAFTA would be obsolete, replaced by a single consolidated trade policy. However, the merger could also create tensions with nations that rely on Canadian exports, such as Japan and South Korea, who might face higher prices or reduced access to essential resources like lumber and oil. The economic impacts. The economic implications of this scenario are perhaps the most compelling aspect. Canada's natural resources would play a central role in boosting the U.S. economy. With control over Canada's oil sands, the United States could achieve energy independence, reducing its reliance on imports from the Middle East and other volatile regions. This would stabilize domestic energy prices and grant the U.S. significant leverage in global oil markets, potentially allowing it to influence prices and policies worldwide. In addition to oil, Canada's timber industry would provide a steady supply of materials for construction and manufacturing, while its vast mineral reserves, including critical metals like nickel and cobalt, would bolster American technology sectors. Freshwater, an increasingly scarce resource, would become another strategic asset. Canada holds about 20% of the world's freshwater supply, and control over this resource would provide the U.S. with a critical advantage in addressing future water shortages caused by climate change. Cities like Toronto and Vancouver, already major economic hubs, would likely see massive investment from American corporations looking to capitalize on new markets. However, this rapid economic growth could exacerbate existing issues like housing affordability and income inequality, particularly in urban areas. Rural regions, on the other hand, might struggle to keep up, facing challenges similar to those experienced by rural America today. Why would Trump do this? Donald Trump's motivations for pursuing such a monumental move would likely stem from his desire to leave a lasting legacy. Known for his America First philosophy, Trump has always emphasized strengthening the U.S. economy and reducing dependence on foreign nations. Acquiring Canada would align perfectly with these goals, transforming the U.S. into an even more dominant global power. Trump could frame this as the ultimate deal, uniting two countries with shared histories and economic ties, while positioning the United States as the undisputed leader of the 21st century. Financial leverage would be the key to making this happen. Trump could capitalize on Canada's economic vulnerabilities, such as its reliance on trade with the U.S., to negotiate favorable terms. Additionally, American corporations could play a significant role by acquiring Canadian industries and exerting influence over the nation's policies. Trump might also use public sentiment, appealing to Canadians who see economic integration as a path to greater prosperity, to build support for the merger. For Trump supporters, this move would be seen as a bold and visionary step, one that secures America's future by consolidating power and resources. However, critics would likely argue that such a move undermines democracy and sets a dangerous precedent for global politics. The cultural and social implications. Beyond the political and economic impacts, the cultural and social consequences of this merger would be profound. Canadians and Americans, despite their shared language and proximity, have distinct cultural identities. Canadians often pride themselves on being more inclusive, community-oriented, and socially progressive than their southern neighbors. Integrating these two populations would require navigating significant cultural differences, potentially leading to friction. For example, gun control, a contentious issue in the U.S., would likely spark debates in Canada, where stricter regulations are the norm. Similarly, social programs like healthcare and education would face significant changes as American privatization policies clash with Canada's publicly funded systems. Indigenous communities in particular might resist these changes, as their rights and treaties could come under threat in the new political landscape. While the idea of Donald Trump acquiring Canada using financial leverage may seem far-fetched, it offers a fascinating thought experiment about the intersection of politics, economics, and culture. The integration of these two nations would create an unparalleled global superpower, reshaping everything from trade routes to cultural identities. However, it would also raise complex questions about sovereignty, democracy, and the cost of such a bold move. Would the benefits of a stronger North America outweigh the challenges, or would this merger ultimately do more harm than good? These are the questions that would dominate debates in a world where this hypothetical scenario becomes reality.